All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am here with Mandy Swanson and Michelle Walters. Ladies, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Well, thanks so much
Thank
for
you for
having us,
having
Shooter.
us.
Yeah, this is great. This is we were just saying before I started recording, this is kind of a new a test or adventure here for having three people on a Zoom call. But
Yes.
so the two of you, I know you're not from the UP, but from what I understand, you guys didn't grow up all that far from the UP. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I don't know which one of you wants to go first, but if you could tell me a little bit about where you guys grew up.
Sure, I'll go.
Okay, go ahead.
We grew up in Peshtigo, which is really close to the UP, just kind of on the other side of the border. We grew up out in the country. We had a pretty simple homestead living type of childhood. We spent like all of the time we could outdoors. Didn't really sit in front of a TV or video games at all. And we kind of spent a lot of our time, especially in the summers, being a part of our 4-H club, which if you're not familiar with 4-H, it's a youth development organization.
Sure.
That teaches kids to, so you learn the just typical skills for life. We learned cooking and gardening and professional development. We learned finances, and that's where we really started to learn like sewing and getting into sewing.
Sure. So for people not listening in, obviously Mandy and Michelle are sisters. Mandy, what age would you say you guys started getting involved in 4-H?
Our parents got us involved as soon as we could. So I think around first, second grade is when we got involved with 4-H. All
right. How far apart are you guys in age?
2 years.
2 years, okay.
And we have a brother in between us as well.
Oh wow, okay. So there's plenty of fun sibling rivalry going on there, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So with the 4-H stuff, I'm assuming a lot of that was like, were you involved in like local fairs and stuff like that too? Most of what I'm familiar with 4-H is like with our county fair. When you go down, there's like a separate spot that's specifically like people that are kids that are involved in 4-H selling different animals and different stuff like that. Is that something that you guys were involved in?
That's exactly it, yeah.
Okay.
We spent the whole summer preparing for the county fair. It was in Woosaki, Wisconsin. And we didn't bring any animals, but fruits and vegetables and plants and crafts, and we did our sewing for it. Pretty much anything else that you can think of.
Sure.
We had in the fair, yeah.
With the sewing, was there like just one specific like adult involved in 4-H that taught you that, or were there like multiple people, or like did your family members help in that in any way? Like who was it that really kind of taught the different skills?
Yes. So our family, we come from a long line of sewists. So both of our grandmas were great sewers. Our mom was a sewer, or she still is. And then of course in 4-H, there were a few moms who were especially, I'm outside and the mosquitoes are getting me. A few moms kind of took over each project area. So there was a couple of moms who did the sewing, and our mom helped as well. So we were kind of surrounded with really talented women that sewed.
That's really interesting. Michelle, would you say that like the sewing was just something that you like gravitated to or found like that you had a skill set there, or was it something that you just kind of like found over time?
I wouldn't say that we gravitated towards it. It was more, I think, forced upon us, because it's really hard to start sewing and follow a pattern.
Sure.
But the creative aspect is what I know I was drawn to.
Okay.
How I could take something and make something new out of it. And that took me through college. I would design my own Halloween costumes. It's one of my favorite holidays. And that's one thing I love to do, is the creative aspect and designing and just making something new.
Sure. Mandy, with the program, do you start with like sewing by hand and then eventually work up to using a machine? Is that how it works?
Yes. So even when we were in like 2nd or 3rd grade, we were making clothes for our dolls, like really, really simple clothes for our dolls out of scraps of fabric, making little bags, giving them to our friends. We had like little businesses in school where we'd make things and sell them for, I don't know what we sold them for, but just, we started very, very early. And that's what, like Michelle was saying, that's what we loved about sewing, is taking something raw and creating something with it. Yeah, sewing from a commercial pattern is very difficult, but that's what we had to do for our 4-H projects. But we also learned incredible skills from those ladies and from following those patterns. And now we create our own patterns, and we wouldn't be able to do that if we hadn't worked with the commercial patterns to begin with.
That's really cool, because I mean, like Michelle had mentioned earlier about, like money handling, and I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that just kind of goes into what you guys are doing now that totally translates, from that 4-H experience. Michelle, you mentioned a few minutes ago, like making Halloween costumes in college and that type of thing. So, obviously this is a UP podcast, and both of you ended up here in the UP. So Michelle, I'll start with you. How did you end up making it to Marquette in the Upper Peninsula?
Well, I came here because Mandy was here.
Okay.
I went to school
after. I was here first.
Yes.
I should have gone first on this one.
Yeah. Well, why don't you go first then, and then
you go
and then
first.
Michelle,
okay.
Michelle can tell.
Yes. So I'm 2 years older. I graduated from high school a couple years older, or before Shell, and we had one cousin who went away to college, but other than that, we are the first generation in our family, both sides, to go to college. So I was a little nervous about that. I wanted to stay close, but not be way too close to home. And, we were mentioning that sibling rivalry before. Shell and I had to share a room all through growing up. And so there was a lot of fighting. And by the time I was 18 and Michelle was 16, we needed a break. So I couldn't just stay at home and go to college at home. I had to leave a little bit. So I decided to go to NMU, and of course the campus is gorgeous, and Marquette is gorgeous, and the lake is wonderful. So I decided to go to NMU, and then my sophomore year, I met my husband, who is a Marquette native, and so we were engaged before I graduated, and we decided to start our careers and our marriage in Marquette. And yeah, and then Shell graduates from college.
Then she tracks
and
you
needs
down.
a job.
Right. Yeah, I went to school in La Crosse, Wisconsin. That was the only school in Wisconsin that had the program that I needed to go to for my medical field. And as soon as I graduated, Marquette was the first place I looked for a job, because Mandy was here, and I had visited her multiple times and fell in love with the UP. And I do not want to leave. Love it here.
Well, that's certainly good to hear. What would you say you love most about the UP, Michelle?
Just that I can drive just a few miles from my home and be on the shores of Lake Superior. I can go for a hike or a bike ride and feel like there's no one else around, but yet it's so close to Marquette.
Sure. Mandy, would you say kind of the same? I mean, I know you touched before on how beautiful everything is up here. Is it kind of the same for you about what you love most?
Yes. I would also add that I love our weather. I love that our summers, with the exception of this summer, our summers are usually in the 70s and not so humid. But this year we are really in for a special summer. I love our weather. I love the winters. I love the snow. And I love the people. That's one thing. There's a little bit of a difference between the mindset that we grew up with and the mindset up here. I love the people as well.
Awesome. It's good to, it's a question I like to ask people that aren't from the UP, just to kind of, even though you're really like, you're Upers now, I mean, you've lived here for quite a while, you know, you're living, working, you have your families here. It's always interesting to just hear kind of at least a somewhat of an outside perspective, you know, with not being from here. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Lumi. First off, how did you come up with a name for your business?
You can take that one, Mandy.
Sure. Well, when we finally did decide to start this clothing business, we had to figure out a name. So we had lots of discussion. We wanted a name that kind of went along with our heritage. So we're Swedish, and my husband's family is Finnish. So we were looking for a Swedish or a Finnish name that kind of represented the grit of the women up here or in the Upper Peninsula, because we were going to start with just women's clothing. And we went through a lot of names, and a friend of mine had just gotten a puppy, and she named her dog Lumi, which is the Finnish word for snow. Okay. And we were looking along the lines of like the weather or a natural feature type term to name our business after. And since snow is such a tremendous part of our lives.
So we might have lost Mandy there, but yep. So we named our business after a dog, but Lumi is just a really easy name to remember, and sure, just rolls off the tongue, and we just fell in love with it immediately. So we kind of stole it.
Yeah. Well, stolen, borrowed, potato. Yeah. Are you back, Mandy?
All right. I'm back.
Okay.
Did you lose that?
I did. Michelle picked up where you left off, though. I think she did a good job.
Okay.
So you mentioned earlier, like making the decision to start this business. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like, how did that whole like side of like, when did you get to that point where you're like, hey, we should make a business? Like, how does that like conversation even happen?
So we got the idea for the business when we were on a trip with our mom in Cape Cod. We went into a store, and it had just the epitome of the Cape Cod style. We loved everything about it. And on the wall, there was the story of the founders and a picture, okay, and they were brothers. And that really inspired us. Like, the UP needs a clothing brand that just represents everything the UP has to offer. Like, they don't really have that, especially for women, like professional women. Sure. We have a lot of the t-shirt brands and different accessories, but like professional women's clothing brand. So that's where the idea initially came from. And then it took maybe about 6 months for us to say, yeah, we're going to make this into a thing. We're going to start a business. So that we made that decision on a road trip back from Ann Arbor after a Michigan game. Our husbands were in the front seat, we were in the back seat, and just discussing how we wanted to make this business and start it up. And they thought we were crazy, that we were never going to do that. We were set on it though, and decided on that road trip we were going to have a business, a clothing business, and name it Lumi.
Interesting. So, okay, so you decide you're going to jump forward and you're going to do this. Then what's that next step from there? Like where does it go from there from just the idea stage?
We had lots of idea meetings that did not amount to anything. Just meeting after meeting about all the wonderful things that we could do, but didn't really implement or start anything. That was a phase of our, of time. And then we saw a flyer, I think it was at NMU, about a business launch pad class. Just, you have an idea, what do you do with it, and how to transition it and implement it in the market. So that's kind of what we did to just validate our idea and chisel it down to exactly what we wanted to do with it and make some progress, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're working with Northern. Mandy, what was that like for you? I mean, obviously you graduated from Northern and now you're kind of like working again with Northern. How was that experience?
Well, I absolutely love Northern Michigan University. I have my bachelor's and my master's degree from Northern, and they helped out with this Launchpad class. High quality school. The class really helped us focus our idea and, like Michelle said, validate it. There was a lot of tough homework that we had to do, decisions we had to make, and those I couldn't recommend. If you have an idea and you want to take your business to the next level, I couldn't recommend a class like that more. We also don't have business training. So I'm a teacher and Michelle is a radiation therapist. So there's no business background in either of those professions. So we really needed all the help that we could get. And that's very important that, like, yes, we know how to sew, but you have to admit to the things that you don't know how to do and learn and take every opportunity you can to learn.
I like that. I think that's really good advice of admitting, like, it's not easy to do that, but to admit that you don't know what you're doing with some stuff and that you need help. I know it's hard, especially for me. It's hard to ask for help sometimes. So how long then? Well, let me rephrase it this way, Michelle. When you make a piece, how long does it typically make for a piece of clothing to come together?
Once we have the pattern perfected and the correct material and everything like that, we can make some of our pieces in 1 to 2 hours now.
Okay.
But from design and to that point, usually it's about 4 iterations of pattern making and then multiple prototypes with different types of fabric and altering the pattern, and then having some friends or family try it for us and see how they like it and if there's other changes to be made. That's kind of the process that we have before we would actually sell an item. Sure.
So you come up with a pattern and an idea and you craft it and you get it ready to go, and you've been working with Northern and getting some help there. Were you also getting some help from like your husbands and family members and other stuff like that too along the way?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Okay. They are, yes, they are supportive. But this was really our thing.
Okay.
And that's kind of the way we wanted it to be. So we don't have investors. Our parents bought us one machine.
Okay.
So that's the only financial investment we've had. That was our Christmas gift one year.
Okay.
But our husbands are very supportive. Because this takes a lot of our time and our energy, and they're very supportive of us.
I just thought maybe Eric, Michelle's husband with his financial background could help be your accountant or something along those lines.
He is, yes. He does our finances.
He helps now,
He didn't
yes.
initially, but yeah, he does our finances now, which is incredibly helpful. And Mandy's husband, Jason, he does a lot of our grunt labor. He helped set up and tear down for pop-up shops that we did. He's designed and welded some of our clothing racks, and we have these huge rolls of fabric, and he's made racks to hold those as well. So yeah, they both helped out tremendously.
They've helped out, but we know who the brains of the operation really is.
We definitely put more time in, yes.
Yes, absolutely. So
yeah.
You mentioned doing some pop-up shops and different things along the way. Is that really kind of how it started, or did you guys like build out a website, or once things were like ready to go, where did you kind of take it from there to kind of really get it off the ground?
So we started with the pop-up shops.
Yeah,
before
I think
the website.
So Mandy, go ahead. What were you saying?
Okay. We did start with the pop-up shops, and we also sold word of mouth. So we would wear things to work, and then our coworkers would buy things from us, or when we would have a prototype, we'd let them try out our things for feedback because we needed that. And then they would wear it out, and other people would see them. And so we sold by word of mouth a lot, and our pop-up shops. Then we got our website going, and then we brought our things to Downwind. Am I missing a step?
No, that's correct.
It took several years. Yeah.
Several years. So Michelle, then if it took several years, it's safe to say this was kind of a slow rise. It wasn't like it just like took off or anything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely been a slow rise. We didn't want it to get out of control and be something that we couldn't handle. We didn't want to make any major mistakes. So just slow rise for almost 4 years now.
Okay.
From the very beginning.
Mandy, what would you say have been some kind of difficulties along the way that
I can answer this otherwise.
That's fine. Go ahead. Yeah, I think she's having trouble hearing me.
So like Mandy said before, we don't have any business background or really computer background either. So we needed help making a website. So Invented NMU helped us create a website, and that was huge.
Sure.
Other difficulties, kind of the biggest thing was feeling confident in our product and what we've done in order to say that it deserves this price tag, and we want everyone to to buy our things. Just having the confidence to do that, even though we've done lots of research on the types of fabric we use, and we've had good reviews from family and friends. Just putting it out to strangers and seeing if they like it was a big step.
Okay. I'm assuming the pandemic has also kind of made things a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. If the pandemic hadn't hit, we had plans to expand to other stores throughout Wisconsin and Minnesota. And with the uncertainty that all businesses are facing right now, that just is totally put on hold. Even with Downwind, they didn't place their like larger spring summer order. They did a sizable one, but it wasn't as big as we were planning for. We had new designs that we didn't release because of all the uncertainty. So yeah, that's thrown a ringer into our long-term plans, but we'll catch up.
Michelle, you mentioned about the thought process and everything that's gone into like the fabrics and everything that you use. from what I understand, everything that you use is like 100% made in the USA, right? Like you're kind of trying to focus on like sustainability. Is that correct?
Yeah, sustainability is a huge part of our brand, and a majority of our items are 100% US, but that we only have pretty much cotton in the US, and we do make items out of bamboo and tencel, which is a wood pulp as well. So we do import some of our fabrics just for a larger variety, but we make sure that it's made in a sustainable way to the fair to the workers and to the environment. But yeah, a large part is 100% USA. Our cotton is grown in Texas and it's weaved in North Carolina, and it's hand sewn by Mandy or myself here in Marquette. But
Okay.
yeah, sustainability is kind of a big part of our brand, not only in the fabrics that we use, but our styles. So we have pretty classic styles. We're not very trendy. So they easily transition through the seasons and from year to year. So that makes them more sustainable than fast fashion brands. And also, they're made with better quality fabrics. So they tend to last a lot longer than things you can buy in other stores as well.
That's very, very cool.
Yes.
So I'm guaranteed there's other people that are listening to this, whether they're male or female, and they've got an idea. They want to start a side hustle like you guys did, or they want to start a business and pursue their dream. If you were gonna give anybody a piece of advice about like how to pursue that hustle, what would you tell them?
So
Okay.
the biggest thing is you don't need to have all the answers before you get started, because you'll never get started. You just have to figure it out as you go. Just jump in with both feet. And there are so many people and resources in the UP that want to help entrepreneurs like us that, they know certain areas better than we do, and they're willing to help. Like Invent at NMU, they're really wonderful to work with. We've worked with Accelerate UP as well, and other ones too. So you don't need to have a perfect business plan and have it all figured out before you start. Just figure it out as you go. Anything to add to that, Mandy?
Yes. I think having a really great partner, like your sister or somebody else that can kind of prop you up. The amazing thing is that it's very, very hard to start your own business. And when one of us is feeling down or just defeated, the other is never feeling that way. So we kind of balance each other out. And so that partnership has been really important. Ask for help, move as slowly as you need to, and just know that it's hard work, but it's very rewarding.
Yes.
Like when we get a really good review on Facebook from some woman that has ordered several of our pieces, she talks about how our clothing has made her life more comfortable or easier. That makes it all worthwhile.
That's awesome. And especially I like the whole like sister family dynamic, because I mean that's unique too. I mean there's a lot of people that go into business with friends or just acquaintances or people they know, but not everybody can say that they went into business with their sister, and you guys are, all things considered, you're making it work. It's not like you're at each other's throats or anything close to that. So, I mean, that's just awesome as well. And certainly unique. So we've done all this talking about your clothes. So if people want to go and buy them, where do they go? Where can they get your stuff at? This is the time to plug your stuff. Where do people go?
So for stores, we're in Downwind Sports.
So Yep.
Keep going, Michelle.
Marquette, Houghton, and Munising. So we're in all 3 of their stores.
Okay.
And on our website is lumiupnorth.com. LUMIUPNORTH.com. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
All right. So, Mandy, is there anything else that I didn't touch on that we didn't speak about that you want to put out there?
I guess just to thank you for having us on your podcast. There's a lot of really incredible entrepreneurs that you've had on your podcast, and we feel honored to be a part of that. So thank you. And like, we would just say a lot of other thank yous, like to our customers and our family and friends, those professionals that we worked with at Invented NMU and Accelerate UP. A lot of thank yous for all the support and the help that we've been given throughout the years.
Okay, how about you, Michelle?
Yes.
You've pretty much covered kind of our whole story, and thank you for giving us an outlet to share it. Thanks for having us on. I love your podcast. It's a privilege to be on here with you.
Awesome. Well, as you guys have been talking or as we've been kind of getting to know each other a little more, and you mentioned other entrepreneurs, I keep thinking of Gina Jacquart, who's been on the podcast before. I feel like I need to connect you guys, because you guys are very, not only similar in what you're doing with sewing and stuff, but just your personalities are very kind of at least similar from getting to know her a little bit better through the podcast, which is just interesting because you guys are definitely cut from the same cloth, to make a pun. Yeah. For sure. But well, then we have to wrap things up with the question that I ask everybody. So I'll start with Mandy. Since she's older, I'll let her go first again. Mandy, how do you like your pasty?
I love pasties. Most of the time with ketchup, but occasionally with gravy too.
Okay, fair enough. How about you, Michelle?
Ketchup, though.
I just love yellow mustard on mine. I am like an other category.
You are. You definitely are.
Yep.
Okay, well, both of you, I thank you for being patient through the technical stuff with this, but I also appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me. You guys have a really great, unique story that definitely speaks to the UP, so I'm glad to get a chance to share it. So thank you both.
Thank you as well.
Thanks for having us.